Well, hey, everybody. It is Tuesday, December 12th. Today's our community meeting. Thanks for joining us. We've actually got three presenters today and looks like a pretty decently full house to talk about whatever we want. How's that sound? We can talk about whatever we want.
That sounds great. I'm gonna go on a tangent. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're welcome to do that. It's your meeting too, bro.
No, 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 no. I'm gonna
Anyways,
go ahead. Let's
stop interrupting,
etiquette.
David.
I know, sorry.
No, it's cool.
It's bad
Uh,
etiquette, actually.
Yeah. Well, speaking of etiquette, let's we try to enforce these couple of basic rules here. Introduce yourself before speaking. Please mute unless you're actively speaking. Cameras are, of course, optional, and questions anytime in chat or audio. But I do ask that if we have a presenter and they make a preference known, to please respect their preference. And you will be kicked right out if you are disruptive.
Well said.
There will be no screen annotations. Profiles only show names. Uh, only hosts or co-hosts can share their screen, and you all typed in a passcode to get here, hopefully, so you're aware of that requirement. Please don't rename yourself, and in fact, it won't let you. That's also been disabled. So now that that's out of the way, geez, we've got a couple of announcements. Check this out. Oh, OpenSearch 1.3.14 was released, and I've got a bunch of windows over my slide, so I can't read it.
Released this morning. So we just got
This morning.
out the door. A couple of security enhancements and some bug fixes and maintenance updates for the 1.3x line.
Do we have any engineers with more specific detail on that? Maybe some of the specific security enhancements or bug fixes? We have a release section for release notes, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have a link to the download and a link to the release notes in the chat as we speak.
Awesome. And we have announced an OpenSearch. I thought it was the leadership committee or council. What is it? Hold on, my windows keep popping up over my OpenSearch leadership committee announced. I think. Well, Chris, why don't you tell us about that?
Sure, we just announced that today. It's been a group. There's a few of us on the call, including Sam Herman, Amitai, and Andre, and myself. And I think that's all of us from the committee on the call right now. But it really is a committee to work towards continuing this project's journey towards a more community-driven model of governance, working towards a sustainable future for those types of actions for the project as a whole. And we'll keep announcing more things as we go. Just wanted to throw that out there. There's the blog post for now.
I'm not cool enough to be part. Chris is.
I wouldn't say I'm cool, but very honored to be with the others on this call.
Yeah, that's cool. We used to have a similar meeting, but I don't think it was quite as public as the leadership committee idea is. So that's actually a great first step. That's awesome. Okay, we have three presenters today. FluentBit 2.2 got released. We'll have an overview from that from Anurag Gupta from Calypsia. Thanks for coming. Always nice to see you. A bright, smiley, happy face joining us in the crowd there. And then OpenSearch Assistant demo. Looks like we have three of us working on that. Oh, David, hey, that's you. David, Ashish, and Ani are going to be here to talk about that AI assistant. And then integrating Figma and user Zoom tests. Now, this is where my experience fails me, actually, because I'm not even sure what Figma is entirely. However, I have a feeling someone's going to reveal that shortly. So if our first presenter wants to prep and get ready, if there's no questions for the good of the order or anything, everyone good? Should I lead some stretches and breathing or anything like that?
We'll always go for more stretching.
Yeah.
Happy to kick it off.
All right. Well, let's see. Anurag, go right at it.
So awesome. Hey everyone, really great to be here again. My name's Anurag. I'm one of the FluentBit maintainers of the project. Also work at Calyptia. So excited to talk a little bit about our latest release, and of course its integrations with OpenSearch and some of the ways you can leverage those new features with OpenSearch. So to kick it off, right, we're all here and part of this great open source community. And as we're part of that community, we're thinking, how do we do some of the analytics, whether it's in observability, security, search, vector, whatever it may be. But really the first thing that comes up is like, how do we get some of the data in there? And specifically with some of this machine data, we face a lot of challenges around, you've got files, you got systems, you got devices, network endpoints, you've got formats, whether it's unstructured, structured, and of course this ever increasing data volume, right? This constant growth of this data generates this data, which has metadata, which generates that. And effectively every year we're continuing to grow. So from a challenge perspective, this is something that we all somewhat deal with, maybe orthogonally or directly with what we're doing with respect to OpenSearch. And from our side, what we've been doing from an open source Apache 2 project, part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, is this project FluentBit. So for those who might not be familiar with it, it's an open source project started 2014. It's written in C. Fun story, was initially written for IoT devices, and just so happens IoT devices, embedded Linux, has that same performance profile as a Linux container. And so as Linux containers started to explode, you see FluentBit explode as well. So about 11 billion deployments on public Docker Hub today. Doesn't include AWS, doesn't include Google. So if you're using any of the large public clouds, most likely FluentBit is somewhat intertwined or intertangled with what's going on. With that, there's a lot of plugins. So a lot of sources, a lot of destinations, and of course, from a destination side, OpenSearch being a very foundational and continually maintained piece of that. And more recently, we've just announced the latest major version 2.2 of FluentBit. And if I scroll all the way to the right, you'll see we have quite a few features that have come in within the 2023 release timeframe of 2.2, 2.1 that we were really excited to release during KubeCon a few weeks ago. And so today it'll be great to kind of chat through like what those features are and how you can start to leverage them with Calyptia, or excuse me, how you can start to leverage them with OpenSearch. So the first of these new features that's out there is multi-threading. And one of my favorite comments that I always see in our community Slack channel, probably similar to OpenSearch, is I need more performance. My logs are growing. I was doing 1 terabyte of ingest per day. Now I need to do 2 terabytes. Now I need to do 4 terabytes, but I don't have any new compute. I don't have any new server space. Like, when is the software going to start to be able to match the needs of that? And I think with FluentBit, we constantly get that question of, my requirement's 1,000 messages per second, and then 2,000, then 4,000, 5,000. I think now we're up to like 75 to 100,000 messages per second, hundreds of megabytes per second requirements that folks come in that. And so what we've done consistently with each version is, how do we increase the multi-threading or increase what we can use and utilize from a compute perspective, and make it so that, one, if there's multiple destinations you need to send data to, or need to route data or do some processing or transforming, you have the ability to do that in a multi-threaded fashion. So with outputs, we've always supported some sort of threading. So you can send to multiple outputs. I can take data maybe coming in from security log, and I can route it to OpenSearch. I can route it to maybe an HTTP endpoint. But what we've recently done is now extend that to the inputs. So as you read that file, having a separate thread that can be there and leverage that. And the reason we've done that is for these, what we call inbuilt processors. So if you want to redact something, you want to drop something, you want to enrich something before it comes in indexed and fully searchable within OpenSearch, we have these new processors that you can leverage as part of the threading modal and start to do that all within as you're pulling that data in. So say you're reading a data from a Kubernetes, or you're reading some data from your local file system. Maybe you want to convert that to open telemetry schema. Maybe you want to convert it to the OCSF format, or the security format that's out there. So a lot of these processors, the way we think about it is they become the foundation to enable a lot of this cool stuff. So you just kind of get these turnkey experiences as you take what we think is great open source Apache 2 ingestion and pair it with a great analytics engine. The next thing, which has been maybe a long time request, has been we just want to deal with one config language across all our CNCF projects, and I get it. YAML's got its pluses, so we've now introduced the ability to do YAML. And in fact, the incentive to use YAML is all the processors I just chatted about in the input and output side. You need YAML to do that. We thought, how can we make it easy to configure? YAML kind of serves that purpose. You can also group things together. So we effectively have pipelines. So pipeline has an input, filter, output, multiple outputs, multiple inputs, whatever it may be, but you can have multiple of these pipelines within the YAML config as well. Monitoring. So who's going to watch the watcher? We've always had a ability to grab metrics from FluentBit, make sure that you're sending data correctly, or if data stops, you know what happened. And now we've enabled a brand new API endpoint that has things like storage metrics. It has everything out of one endpoint, all of it in open metrics or Prometheus format. So that's all there in 2.2. Big request that folks have is like, I don't see the data in OpenSearch, or I'm searching, I can't see anything. Let me check the agent. Is it actually collecting the data, or did something go wrong? The next one is also really fun. And so folks who might be collecting data from the Beats ecosystem, or collecting data from maybe other agents like Splunk Universal Forwarder, maybe even FluentD, you might be familiar with this feature where it's, I want to change the configuration, but I don't want to restart my process. And so now within FluentBit, we support the full-on hot reload. So the ability to kind of reload the config in place without having to shut off the process and reload the process, or shut down the port, reload the port. This is something that actually extends out against Linux, Windows, Mac OS. So all of the different OSs that we support there, we have hot reload there as well. And let's talk a little bit about processors. So this is a fairly large investment with 2.2. And the idea really is the way processing used to work is you had an input, it used to do some processing, and then you go to an output. So you might say, I'm reading a log file, I'm dropping or redacting something, and then I'm sending it to OpenSearch. And effectively, we want to make it so increase the performance, allow you to do things where you might be sending data to 2 OpenSearch clusters, for example. And in one cluster, you might want to drop everything that contains ABC. And in the other cluster, you might want to keep everything, almost like an archival use case. So instead of having to write this like convoluted filtering code that's input, if X, then do Y, if Z, then do blah, for each output, we can effectively attach logic on top of that. So we can say, for this OpenSearch cluster, do this, and for this OpenSearch cluster, do this. Really useful for aspects like creating a unique ID or generating a unique ID that's on top of each message, potentially even doing things like lookups. If you want to go and call an API, you can do that for a particular endpoint before you send the data. So this is a great new foundational feature. The way I would think about it from an OpenSearch perspective is we'll continue to give more processors that do things like schematize. So maybe you're reading CloudTrail data and you want to schematize it to OpenTelemetry schema. And so here's a processor that you can plug into that one input, and all of a sudden everything lights up when you have a dashboard for that CloudTrail data. We won't talk too much about this, but again, to go through the use case, right? I might have 2 clusters doing a little bit of processing for one and a little bit of processing to 2, so I don't have to, kind of do all of that at one. Now, there's always going to be some custom processing, and we won't be able to meet everything out of the box with what we have. And this is where Lua processing comes in handy. So Lua processing allows you to use a scripting language and effectively call it, again, similar to each input having a processor, each output having a processor, and being able to do that. The fun part, which we'll talk about in a little bit too, is it works on metrics. So if you're collecting node exporter metrics, collecting processor metrics, WMI metrics from Windows, you can also do some of those transforms on top of those things like labels and whatnot. So yeah, just as a summary for processors, right? Filters, they still exist. You want to keep using that. Excellent, no challenge. You don't want to use YAML, no challenge. Keep using what exists there. But with 2.2, I highly encourage folks to try out these processors. We're expecting you to get better performance, and we think at least the logical sense is it's easier to understand how things are moving. Now, FluentBit has always also traditionally supported logs, and about 2-3 years ago, we started the journey to also support things like metrics and over time traces. And from a metric support, we really doubled down on what the CNCF or Cloud Native Computing Foundation has with respect to open metrics, Prometheus, and OpenTelemetry. We took a lot of the good stuff that the node exporter team did and made it so, hey, if you're running FluentBit, we're not going to give you 100% compatibility with node exporter from like a feature comparison. We'll take what we think of as like the 80% use case and make sure that if you want to leverage FluentBit, you don't want to install another agent, you have the capability to do so. So that's really where we've added a lot of the metric support, over time. And within 2.2, we've really increased the amount of OpenTelemetry support. So this is one that we're seeing for more logs, more metrics, more traces. How do we commonize into a single schema? We've added an input so you can take and receive from SDK, collector, other OTel sources, and of course output to OTel compatible endpoints, of course, including OpenSearch as well. So that's really where a lot of the work in 2.2 has gone in, is schematized processing. And the last one, which is probably a longer future tail, but one that we've started to enable nonetheless, is the development experience, right? With FluentBit, and it's written in C, and I think there's probably folks who are like, wow, awesome. And there's probably other folks who are like, gross, I don't want to deal with that. No challenges. We totally understand that everyone's got their favorite language. And one thing that we found is really interesting within the ecosystem is WebAssembly. So, hey, if you like Rust, you like Go, you like Python, you like Ruby, whatever it may be, why don't you write however you wish to get the logic across, compile it down to WebAssembly, and then from that perspective, we can leverage a really fast, low resource, high performance compute of FluentBit, but the language flexibility that you might prefer for filters. So that's brand new. Additional capabilities in 2.2 as well. And yeah, from a kind of overall perspective, highly encourage folks to try this out. Very experimental at the moment, but something that we're seeing a ton of folks interested in. And yeah, that's a little bit about FluentBit 2.2, and of course some of the features, many of which apply to OpenSearch. So excited to showcase more. We have actually a webinar tomorrow that will go over OpenTelemetry and FluentBit in detail. And then next month in January, I'll probably send it out to this group to promote. We'll do a FluentBit and OpenSearch webinar as well. We had a webinar last week and someone says, we need more OpenSearch and FluentBit content. And I was like, awesome, let's go for it. So I'm happy to make sure the community feels good about that and gets a good getting started on it. So
Awesome. Thanks, Anurag.
Thank
Wanted
you.
to wanted to tell the group one more thing about Anurag. We were looking, Patty actually was looking at the numbers for the blog this year. And Anurag has written 4 of our top 50 all time in the last 12-month period, totaling about 17,000 views on those 4 posts alone. So thank you, Anurag. That's tremendous.
Awesome.
We were just talking about this the other day, like trying to look up some of our blog metrics, and as it turns out, you really have written 4 of our most high performing blog articles for
In the
some
last-
time now.
Yeah,
Oh,
last 12 months.
That's great news. And I guess I will also commend the community because I like to write it when folks are like, hey, can you please write something on this? Great. Awesome. Like that's the best way I like at least to go about content. So, community, if you have more topics or things that you feel are not as well described in either the Fluent or OpenSearch blogs, like let us know. I'm happy to keep writing. That's awesome. Great stats. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, David Tippett, Ashish, and Aniruddha, are you ready to do your thing?
Actually, I was gonna say that's a typo. I'm not going to be leading this, but Ashish and Ani, please come to the stage.
Yeah, there's actually another typo on top of that. So Annie is actually sick. So it would be me presenting with Joshua.
There we go. Looking
Gotcha.
forward to hearing it.
See how everyone
Make
backs up
yourself at
everyone inside the project. It's like it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let me first start by sharing my screen, and I can start talking about the topic I wanted to present. So hi everyone. I work in Amazon on OpenSearch. So recently, just about a few weeks ago, we had launched a demo playground called the AI Playground, which showcases some new Gen AI assistant toolkits. And this is with the whole new push from this past year. People seen like Gen AI push as LM push. So we were looking to see how can we use Gen AI and LM to improve OpenSearch and kind of help build a customized experience there with an assistant. So here, what I'll do is first showcase a demo on the AI Playground and go over some documents. And also after that, Josh will show another slightly other demo where you can also play around with this entire AI assistant on your own machine. So here, as I just shared a quick blog post, but from here, you can also go to the playground, which I will go to. The simple URL called ai.playground.opensearch.org, and you'll be brought to a login page, which don't worry, we're not really storing any credential information. This is needed to ensure in case people trying to hit our endpoint, and we have some sort of throttling mechanisms to ensure our LM endpoint is not hit too much. So simply you can just log in with any Gmail or Google account or something that's already tied to to a Google account. So after you click in, you'll be shown this new homepage where it kind of takes you to try out this new query system that we have integrated into the Log Explorer page. So if you just click on one of these suggested questions and say, how many errors are there in my logs? So here we're taken to the observability logs page, just the data explorer. So by default, what it is, it asks my question in natural language. And what it's been doing is it generated a PPL query that is shown right here. And by default, for this question, we defaulted to ask on the SO logs index. So it generated this query and then got the results that is shown right here. Because here we're asking how many errors are there logged. So we got the exact count of errors we have in our logs based off this query. So essentially what it's doing is it understands this data has a lot of HTTP error codes there. So it uses the 400 and 500 error codes to determine like how many of those errors do we have. And once it generates the results, it also uses LLM to generate a summary of the results overall. So here you can say it's like the searcher's response shows there are 96,281 errors in the logs that match this query criteria. And it just gives a little bit more details on that. And let's say I want to ask a different question with some on a different index. So we already have 3 different sample data sets that we're using that's pre-canned with OpenSearch, which is the e-commerce data set, the logs data set, and the flights data set. And we have also added this SSO logs data set as a different one, which is being generated from some OpenTelemetry configurations. So let's say we go to the flights data set and we're asking, let's say, what are my longest flights, right? So here we just do simply generate and run. So now it asks generate a new PPL query that's sorting based on flight time hour and checking these fields. So here, without even looking at the results, let's say here it's telling me that these are the longest flights. So it's like the Chengdu Shuangliu International Airport in China to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport is the longest one that's almost about 10 hours long. And then showcase another flight, which is about, again, 10 hours, and another one, which is 10 hours. And let's say I want to ask a different question. What are my shortest flights in the US? So now it's searching all the shortest flights where origin country is US and flight time is less than 5 hours. So based off this, it looks like it did not find any results. So here we don't have any results, so it just gave an empty response and there's no summary. But here, if we say where are the shortest flights, and now it should be generating the results.
I think you're asking for short flights instead of shortest flights.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
why the terminology. See, so that's also a good call out because this LLM is asking like you have to actually put some proper grammar here. So if you're doing incorrect grammar, it's not able to understand what you're talking about. So let's do what are my shortest flights. So now you can see here the query is fixed and is able to generate those results. And let's say now we want to go back to in the US. So here now it's able to generate some results. And here it says the shortest flight is from Tampa International Airport and the McCarran International Airport, which is both taking 0 minutes. That may be an issue with the queries, but
Oh no, it's there.
so here it says 0 minutes. So here it found the results. So this would actually be a good example to understand more about this data and could be issues with the data or how the query is being executed against the query itself. Do note that we're continuously working on these pieces, and we would love to also get more feedback if there's any issues you guys are facing so we can understand what the problems are. And when you go onto this AI playground, you can see that we have this share feedback via forum or Slack, which you can go to and ask any questions about. So now let me talk about because now since we're an open source community and we want to make sure we open source our code, this code that we are exposing right here is actually already open sourced and available on GitHub. So let me change the folder. So here we have this new repository called Dashboard Assistant, which is the main repository that we're using for the demo, as well as this for assistant feature. So right now we do have an RFC that we have published, and this is inside our issues tab. If you go to the OpenSearch Assistant, so we have published this RFC that kind of talks about the high-level design that we are planning to go with for this OpenSearch assistant, where we are going to be integrating with this flow framework and agent framework. So the flow framework is going to be a new plugin that we're going to be launching, as well. Agent framework is going to be a new component that is part of ML Commons. And we do have some references to those RFCs as well, which have been also published. So I do highly recommend, if anyone is interested, please do take a look at this OpenSearch Assistant RFC and do comment on any questions you may have and how we can implement some things, if there should be things done differently compared to what we're doing right now, or if there's any other questions people may have. And I did mention on the AI Playground that there is the forum and Slack. So we do have this public Slack workspace if you're not a part of. And inside that public Slack workspace, we had created a new channel. And this new channel is called, let me open that up. It's called the Assistant Feedback channel in the public channel workspace. So please feel free to join this, ask any questions, and put any feedback or any weird issues you're having with the AI Playground, so we can see to address those issues and try to improve the experience over time. I did want to talk about, yeah, so there's also, so I talked about there's this blog post that talks about a high-level summary of the new Gen AI Assistant Toolkit. So feel free to go to the new blogs that we have posted and to read up on this and learn a little bit more. And we do have a nice video that our marketing team had worked on and created. And finally, since I've shown this AI Playground workspace, sorry, there's also, if you want to run this on your own machine, we do have a Docker image available for others to run on their own machine and connect it to their own LLM model service to try out this whole functionality for their specific use cases. So to view that guide, you can simply go to this Dashboard Assistant repo, and there's this Getting Started guide document, which will kind of walk through the steps of what you need to do to set up the Docker locally, and also set up the different configurations that are needed to connect to the LM endpoint, and then you can start playing around with it. Also, we do have a link to this in the blog post as well, in case you lose track of this repository. I did now also want to give this screen sharing to Joshua Lee, to my coworker, where he's going to showcase how he's already done the setup on his own machine, and he can also showcase some other functionalities when you have your own setup, where there's also a chat feature that's coming a part of this. I'll stop sharing my screen. Joshua, feel free to take over.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I will take over. Hello, everyone. So I'm Josh. I'm the developer. I'm a developer in the Dashboard Assistant plugin, and I will show what she said. So here we have this Getting Started guide. What this does is it has two parts. One is to run OpenSearch and dashboards in the Docker setup. The second part is to set up the ML Commons model, which connects to maybe Bedrock, maybe OpenAI. So I can go over them. So first, if you go to Docker, there should be a Docker compose somewhere. Look out where it is. So basically, so you will be able to get this compose file from this. I think it's the OpenSearch download page right here. So if you click that, if you download this file, and all you need to do is to switch the image. So by default, it's going to point to the official OpenSearch release. but here we released a separate image that's documented in this getting started guide. So here I just copied this string, which is for the OpenSearch image and for the dashboards image, and replace them into the image link in my Docker Compose. And the other part I did is to add a custom OpenSearch dashboards YAML. So in the Assistant Dashboards plugin, there's an optional feature that's called chat that's disabled by default. So here it has this instruction. So if you want to enable the chat assistant feature, what you can do is you can set this in this YAML file to be true. So how I did that is I created this YAML file and basically took the default configuration of OpenSearch dashboards and added this line below that and mapped into the container. So this way, when I run Docker, I would have this feature flag enabled. So I already have this running, and just do APS, and you can see it's already running. So to access my endpoint, I will go to this is actually running on EC2. So I will just go directly visit that EC2 and go to the dashboards port. I here log in as admin, and you will see that there's a homepage. It shows the query assistant that I will show in a bit. And here I will demo some workflows using this new chat feature on the upper right. So let's say, so in this cluster, I do have some sample indices, and I set up some just mock alerts on the indices. So here we have like 55 alerts being triggered. And when you just come to this page, you might not know like what exactly is happening. So we can first ask in the chat just to find, I know I have this index, so I will say to find what are the alert monitors on the index. So this is going to check a list of tools that we support, and one of them is to search the alerting monitors by index. And that returns to us that there's one match where the monitor checks if the by field some aggregation exceeds 500. And that's actually correct because I did set up this monitor. And we know that since this is the only monitor, this is triggering all the alerts. But we can also ask here, so are there any alerts being triggered? There's a agent in the backend that's handling this request, and it's routing to different tools. So right now here you can see it's triggering a separate tool that's not the same as previous search alerting monitors, but it's trying to get alerts. So this information tells us there are many alerts being triggered throughout the day. Last one around 9 hours ago. They all have a severity level of 1. And to get more information or to gain more confidence, we can see how this was generated. And this is actually the raw output of the tool. So it's directly calling the alerting API and returning all this response. And the LLM would consider this response along with context with the user question to generate this natural language response. And next, we can ask something like, what are the logs with non-200 status code on this index? So for this alert, it actually doesn't matter because it's just a fake alert. But in a realistic scenario, you might be interested in what are the recent errors in the index. Know that this index, it understands that it's talking about the previous OpenSearch sample data logs index ask. So here it tells us there are some 503 and 404 errors. Some are related to some zip file and some file doesn't exist. So in this cluster, what I did is I also ingested some also mock tickets into the vector index that can serve as a private knowledge base. What this means is that I can ask to find recent tickets to explain what happened in my system. So these tickets are mock tickets, but they do exist in the cluster. So if we can actually take a look at what they how they are stored. This is a KN index. So it's stored in vector embeddings, and there's a corresponding raw text for each embedding. Oops. Okay, it's here somewhere. Yeah, so this will be the raw text. And this ticket information would call this tool to search for relevant tickets and use that as the resource to answer this question. So here we can say uses this ticket. There's actually a match that describes some issue with multiple microservices and some other tickets. So using this, we can basically use OpenSearch as a private knowledge base to answer questions. And of course, we can ask for more detail on the, yeah, it mentions the misconfiguration is a load balancer. So it says because the configuration were not updated after a new deployment of the application that is causing these errors. So from here, in a realistic scenario, you will have enough information to troubleshoot and fix this issue. So that's how the chat is working right now. And we also have the Query Explorer that Ashish showed before, which uses the same model, but just to generate PPL queries. I won't show that again. But for the chat, we also have a full screen view. We have a history table. So all the conversations are automatically stored. So you can go back to any conversation, you can continue the conversation. Yeah, that's pretty much the demo. No questions, I will stop sharing.
I have a question, not about the first of all, amazing, and I have to say, like, the more interesting approach, like in terms of like features that were featured around this topic, this is one of the more complete ones that I've witnessed. So I'm very happy and with the work, and it's like it really looks amazing. One thing I haven't a question about is multi-tenancy and where we are in terms of security, preventing people from doing what is called slowly being called, I don't know, like chat GPT injection or something like that.
Right, so regarding the chat history, because this can definitely contain like sensitive information. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's stored in the global Kibana index, but for the actual product, which is actually being developed right now, I believe that will utilize the system index to separate the conversation by user, so that even admin cannot access users' chat history.
Yeah, so the idea is that the ML comments plugin, which is the providing the agent framework, which are these agents will store like some sort of memory, which is like these chat sessions. So these will be stored based off the user information. So we're trying to tie these memories to essentially users themselves. So we don't have multiple users having access to other people's like chat sessions, since especially like there could be some sensitive information there that's more to these chat user. But we do make sure like we would want the admins, if they're administrator though, they would still have access to maybe all the chat history sessions, because obviously if there's some issues, let's say they need to debug into something, they can see what happened there.
Well, and if, for example, someone has chat history and then the admin wants to block part of his capabilities, like limit at that point, then would the chat history be still an issue? Like, because the answers are still kind of available?
So you're saying that if they want to, let's say, block this user from using the assistant or the features, right?
No, asking specifically about the data that, for example, you created a search and it's viewing certain documents, and then I want to take some of those documents and decide, oh, those are, I don't know, PII. I didn't want them there. I want to block them. So once
Okay,
the search
yeah.
is created and in the history, is it still sort of cached there in some way, or is the next search always going to go through all the security plugins mechanisms?
Yeah, so that's a fair question. So we do have this concept like the user can continue their chat session history, or then they can kind of clear out their chat session. So you can start a brand new chat session from start. So in this case, this is more like a security issue where the administrator wants to remove that user from having access to that information again. So what the user could do, the administrator could do is use the APIs to actually delete that specific chat history. So now that user doesn't have access to that chat history. And additionally, those documents that are that the user should not have access to, they can maybe apply some DLS or FLS filters, or there could be something other index permissions they can change for that user. Because this whole assistant and everything we're planning to have, we'll be running it as the user. So we're ensuring that the user does not have escalated privileges to access data that they do not normally have if they were not using this assistant.
Maybe there could be a TTL over there. So as an administrator, I could say, listen, my users like of my system, they're allowed to use this assistant as much as they want, but after like 1 day, this data is that it's no longer relevant. Their session is expired and it's all gone, and they're gonna have to start from scratch. Kind of giving the capability of also not accumulating a lot of garbage, and also maybe security and changing roles.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point because I know there's been a lot of new policies. Sometimes countries like say, hey, we can only have this data like living for a certain amount of time, and after that it has to be deleted. So that's a good point. I'll keep note of that and making sure that's also incorporated. But feel free to maybe there. I had also posted the RFC for the OS assistant, and there's also links to the agent framework, which is kind of maintaining this chat history. So maybe in the OS assistant RFC or the agent framework RFC, feel free to also add that comment, but I'll take note of that.
So let's
Cool.
take
Thanks.
any further questions offline because we still have a third presenter. I want to make sure everyone gets time. Zania and let's see who's going on. Is Aparna here today?
I think I'm gonna do the whole thing. Thanks, Nate, and thanks everyone. That was a really cool presentation. I didn't want to kind of interject. It was also a major project for the UX team. So yeah, it's really exciting how it evolves. And yeah, I'm gonna drop all the links that I will be mentioning in my presentation in the chat all together. So let me share my screen and I will go over my stuff really quickly. So just give me a sec. So if you have a recording, you can later refer to it. Okay, once again, sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Crisp and clear.
Okay, awesome. So our presentation is targeting not just UX designers, even though we're working towards providing resources for UX designers who design for OpenSearch and other open source products. And also it's kind of a sneak peek into the kitchen, how we do what we do and how we come up with the like ultimate mocks that are expected from the UX designers. So and how we engage with the community. So there might be some interest as well. It's not the first time we participate. My name is Zinia, and also the co-author of this presentation and co-author of all our work is Dr. Aparna Sundar. We are happy to have her in our team. She's enabling and supporting all our UX initiatives, and hopefully I will make a case of why it's important, why UX research. She's a senior UX researcher in AWS, and I'm a UX designer. We collaborate all the time to navigate the user behavior, how it affects the experiences, how it affects all the features, all the products that we produce. I'm not sure if Aparna is here, but yeah, I just love working with her, and I will try to kind of cover what UX research is, not as good as she might do that. So this is my short agenda. We might go over time, like a couple minutes, by UX research resources and tools that might come unexpected for many people. And I want to do a quick demo, basically the lining of the security analytics usability study, which we also recruited for using this community meeting and GitHub community as well. And then conclusion with the resources that we have for UX designers. Okay, so here's how the project usually works from the idea to delivery, and delivery would be the feature ready-made. For UX designers, what is expected is usually some kind of mocks or like visuals, colors, etc. This is easy to understand, but how we actually make a case of what is right. So we use different types of research to figure out what would be the behavior of the user based on their goals, based on the psychology and tons of other things. So for different stages of the project, it would be different methodology. And we would use different tools for that. Let's say we need access to the right users. We need to understand their hypothetical behaviors because we don't have this feature or this whole, like an example being, for example, OpenSearch Assistant. So we don't know how users would actually interact. We cannot build full mock right away. We need to do some exploratory stuff. When we go into formative, we evaluate whether users will like it or not. So this also has the stages, and at every stage we can pivot with our design decisions while we are collaborating with the engineering, with the product. Everyone is looking from their perspective. So we can bring technical requirements as well and kind of see how they work together with what our users would want to see and how they would actually use the final experience. So just to illustrate my point, I am going to talk about the user Zoom, which is a paid tool which we use because we got lucky to have access to that. It could be a different tool. These are some examples of how exploratory, informative, and evaluative research can work, what kind of tests there might be. I'll give you an example. When we were exploring introducing log types for security analytics, we did card source exercise using this tool. I also posted on GitHub, like asking the questions that been structured similar to card sort. So user would like, or any other relevant persona would answer in a kind of concise manner. So we can actually make some conclusions and design the experience based on the answers. I want to quickly show you basic usability test, which is really nice because it's unmoderated. So user actually interact with the prototype and we can make conclusions. We can see the video, we can hear the audio, like, oh, okay, I don't understand that. What was that? Where's the button? This kind of thing. So we can gain a lot of insight from that. Regarding the tools, it's not necessarily that user researchers and user design, like UX designers, need really expensive, comprehensive tools. So some of the basic stuff, like text editor, I mentioned, like posting GitHub issue with just asking right questions, video conferencing tool to maybe do surveys, do interviews. There's a lot of survey tools out there in the internet, like Typeform, SurveyMonkey. You can recruit within the community on GitHub. So I'm just kind of going high level here. So you can see minimal, very scrappy way to perform user research. And there might be ideal state when designers are supported with training, dedicated UX research teams, etc. That's happens really rarely, but yeah, we can strive for that. There's also a base case in the middle that every UX team can try to maintain and strive toward. Okay, so here's usability study with user Zoom, what we did. I just want to show how it looks like from the designer perspective. It's a basic usability test, which we did using this user Zoom tool. It's unmoderated study. So you can see the animation, how I designed the study within user Zoom. So each participant had to perform 5 tasks, and we asked questions about how was the experience after each task. In Study Builder, we can cover some very important parts like legal consent, initial questionnaire to figure out who the right user, for example. We might also include a screener question that would reduce the number of participants, but we will get people to participate who are actually more relevant persona for what we're doing. So they understand this is not some random person who doesn't know anything about log analytics or like security analytics. So that's really important. I used actually a living instance of OpenSearch version 2.9 for the test, but also designers heavily use Figma. And recently, this fall, Figma introduced password protected link sharing. So if you have a feature that requires NDA and such, or just you don't want to share it publicly, you can share it with specific people, you can share with password. So it's really powerful tool that I mentioned for like designer tools in the beginning. Here's how the help page on Figma website looks like. I added the link to the chat. You can pick up and check this out, how better share the links with Figma. So instead of leaving instance, you can just move your prototype into public sharing, and user would click through. You will get instant feedback where they clicked, we didn't click, where they didn't understand the copy of the page, etc., etc. Okay, so here's the recruitment. We did multiple cohorts. The tool even has some participants, kind of professional participants that we can screen, and we can kind of narrow down to professionals in a specific area, which we did. So we tested with internal teams, we did it with OpenSearch community, and also with the panel participants. Here are some best practices. Technical requirements should be mentioned in the beginning. There are some challenges with the tool because for usability study specifically, user need to give access to the microphone, camera, watch the video, very short though, but that's kind of adds to the complexity for user. So we need to be really careful and really considerate with that. So you can see examples of the initial questionnaire. And another issue is self-reported success on task. So again, there is no perfect tool. Video conference with the user that you recruited specifically for like a flow, for example, would do better job in some aspects, maybe worse job in other. User setup, as I mentioned, really hard for user Zoom, but also once user is onboarded, you can ask more questions, you can test more complex flow. Limited space to explain the task. That came up unexpectedly because our product is highly technical, so we need to provide some like field names, etc., so user can actually complete the task successfully. And another problem is self-reported success. User can just click, okay, this was successful, and the system will get it as an answer. So that's also can be overcome with like watching through the videos, etc., and working through report. Okay, so results. I don't have the kind of report on the study that we did, but we already making improvements. I mentioned it in one of my GitHub issues. We improved the first-time user experience based on the results of the study. We looked into the tasks. We're working toward having more comprehensive picture of like what is our user, how they use the product, especially with security analytics, which is comparatively new space for OpenSearch. And here are some resources. The UX team and UX research team is working toward providing resources for the community, blog, templates, and Figma. That would be really interesting for specifically designers. And we're working on providing more resources. Yeah, I think almost on time. Thanks, everyone. Any questions?
Oh, that's very clear.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for sharing some of that work with us, Zinnia. We don't always get to see the actual research that goes into why we make things one way versus the other. So I'm always very grateful to kind of see some of the hard work that goes into actually study user behavior and make reasonable decisions based on that. So so thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks for having us. Big thanks to Aparna for like enabling us to work towards ideal case. Thanks a lot to everyone.
That's super work.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're over the hour. Everyone's free to leave if you so desire. I wanted to thank our presenters today. Or if there's anything else anyone would like to talk about before disappearing, I am humbly at your service. Otherwise, do you know?
Yes, give it to us. The
Come on, Nate.
joke.
All right,
Give
all
it.
right, all right, all right. So I was walking in the snow the other day, and I ran into Will Smith, and I didn't realize I was walking through Fresh Prince.
Got him every time. Take care, Andrew. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
That was a good one.
That's
Bye.
wonderful.